Yeah, I love the beginning of the year, especially a Monster Energy AMA Supercross, because that's when we get the most variance of the thing that we don't want to be a factor, but secretly actually benefit from it being a factor, and that is bikes being right or wrong. I think in our dream scenario, this competition is athlete versus athlete, and we analyze the riders to no end, especially the mental side and who's confident and who's nervous and who's scared and who's intimidated and all those things. We want it to be rider versus rider. We make all these parallels toward other athletic sports, but the bikes are there. The bikes are weird in this sport. They're not as big a factor as they are in almost any other motorsport, certainly not as much as MotoGP or F1 or NASCAR, which are really primarily about the equipment. Those sports try to hide that and pretend it's actual gladiator combat. Supercross, motocross, yes, it actually is much more athlete versus athlete, but the bikes are a factor. And every once in a while, I'll hear someone say, man, I wish they could find a way to regulate it where everyone's on the same bike so we'll really know who the best guy is. Be careful what you wish for. There's just enough variance in motorcycle to add an additional variable, which makes the racing exciting. And 2025 is proving that again. Look, the Honda 450 has been great the last couple of years. They've won the last two Supercross titles with two different riders, Chase Sexton and Jett Lawrence. We saw perfect seasons. We've seen pretty much dominance from Honda in the 450 division like they have not had in 20 some years. But they've hit a little bump in the road here, just a speed bump. This will be fixed. This is not panic button. This is not alarm. Don't come back and make fun of me 5 weeks into the series when the Lawrence brothers are killing it and say, oh, you were all making a big panic out of this. This is normal. This is good. This is what makes racing exciting. We actually previewed it a month ago on our Monster Energy Racer X preview shows. Just check out this quick clip that I put together.
The only thing I'm worried about, and it's probably nothing, is the lack of testing time, the lack of time this offseason on the new bike. They took some time off at the Motocross the Nations. They had 5 or 6 rides going into Paris. He won everything but one, but didn't look as good. And then, rode production bikes in Australia. He had a rough AusX Open. And they're clamping down, and they're going to have a month or so to get these new 2025 Honda CRFs working for them. They switched to Get ECUs. Now they switched to Get because they felt like it was better. But how does that affect Lars and his button? And so there's a small bike worry for me.
For people listening to this right now who are like, what? Hunter won a moto the very first time he got on that 2025, and then they went 1-2 in SMX. Steve, we've all heard, all three of us, that the transition to Supercross on that new bike has been a little tougher.
The changes to the bike from talking to the Honda guys are substantial for Supercross. So I do believe there's something there.
It's something that I think they're going to work through. And when you watch episode 1, we talk about all the ways that Jett Lawrence can be beat. How are they going to attack him? How are they going to be opportunistic? I think that this could be one. The newness of the motorcycle. They have been a little bit vocal about it's not perfect yet. It's not doing exactly what they want it to do in Supercross. So is there a window of opportunity for these guys, especially early in the season, to kind of jump on that?
Yeah, we knew the bikes were not going to be perfect coming into the year. And then Mathis and I actually spoke to someone at Honda who would know the perfect cocktail of things that they're dealing with to try to get these bikes sorted before Anaheim 1. There's actually 5 pieces to this. A, there's a new 2025 Honda. And yes, I know that it worked great in motocross and SMX. Right off the bat in Paris, they were saying it's been tougher to get this bike dialed for Supercross. So that's number 1. Number 2, there are new Showa suspension components, significantly new components. So they're working through that while working on the new chassis. So that's 2. 3, there's the new ECU you heard mentioned in the clip. So that's something else new to work with. And then they have new fuel. Honda has switched from VP to ETS. I don't know if any of those 4 things alone would be a huge problem, but all 4 things together, especially when coupled with factor number 5, which, as mentioned in the clip, the Lawrences haven't just been home to do 2 straight months worth of testing. You add those 5 elements up, and now you've got a problem. Not a panic button problem, but a problem. And that's what's awesome about the beginning of the year. We want a level playing field, we think, but actually it's more exciting, right, when you have some variance, especially when there's a heavy favorite coming into the season, and now he has to deal with a obstacle both in the point standings and overcoming a motorcycle that's not quite doing what he wants to do. And we've seen this before. Besides Jeremy McGrath, or maybe equal to Jeremy McGrath, there might not have been a rider that would start a season with, yeah, you know, he's the best guy and he's going to win, expectations any higher than James Stewart. But multiple times for James Stewart, we saw at Anaheim, the bike's going to be a bit of a problem here. 2009, his first year on the Yamaha, was not good the first couple of rounds. He managed to overcome it. He crashed out of round 1 in a battle with Chad Reed, and then won, I think, like 7 in a row to get back into the point standings. But honestly, the first 5 races that year, he was not on it. The bike was holding him back enough where he was a mere mortal. He was winning the races, but barely. He was hanging on the ragged edge to make it happen. And I actually asked James about that over the weekend in Anaheim, and he said, oh yeah, 09 was tough. I remember watching practice at the Houston race in 09 and saying, oh, they got it now, he's back. I could just tell, just honestly by the angle of how front end down he was on the jumps, that he was back where he needed to be. But it led to a wild, chaotic beginning of that season. And then 2010 probably would have been the same. Yamaha had that new, completely fresh, backwards motor design in their bike for the first time.
And here's the key with James Stewart. He's riding that new Yamaha, and it's new. It's a new bike. And, you know, things, when cars come out new, it's the first year, things happen. Hopefully they got all the bugs worked out.
And again, Stewart managed to, in this case, win Anaheim 1, outdueling the rookie Ryan Dungey, but it was tough, and he was saving the bike 2 or 3 times a lap. The bike wasn't where they needed it to be.
With only a handful of laps left in the main event, Stewart knew that he had to pour it on.
Stewart trying the inside. He stays in there.
Yeah.
Not yet. Got him now.
Come on, Ryan, you gotta go.
The beginning of the race, just really was struggling with setups. I think we went the wrong way and a little too rigid, and was spinning out over there, having some issues.
He got hurt right after that, so we didn't get to see the evolution throughout the year. But it's more exciting sometimes when the overwhelming favorite has some obstacles to overcome. Ryan Villapoto had it, I think, the year Kawasaki switched to Showa Air Forks. He had been on KYB Forks, Spring Forks for a long time. It was a struggle at the beginning of the 2013 season, and he had a bad Anaheim 1, and he had to dig himself out of a hole. It made for a much more compelling Supercross championship. So I actually love that we get this variance here, and I hope that we never get to the point where everyone nails it perfectly each time. The exact opposite is we could pretty much tell at Anaheim last year, this Eli Tomac isn't quite the pre-Achilles injury Eli Tomac. And he really wasn't all year. He got better. He eventually won a race. And then by the end of last season, Supercross long in the rear view, he seemed pretty much back. But now we've got Eli is back at round 1. That was spectacular. The riding was great. Don't worry about the result with an early crash. And you know that Chase Sexton is going to be formidable also. This is just an eye test thing. Technically, Sexton did get on the podium at Anaheim last year, but he kept saying it doesn't mean that we're actually there yet. And this time he was pretty much saying we're there without saying too much, and then he proved it by riding well all day and all night. So this is the great thing about bike variance. As frustrating as it was last year to say, it would be interesting to see if Sexton was more comfortable in the KTM, what could he do? We had to wait a year, but now it's flipped. Now you have Jett Lawrence trying to figure his bike out while Sexton already has his dialed. And then the injury thing is always a pain, literally and figuratively. We had to wait a year to really get good Eli Tomac back at the races, but now we have that. I think you can pretty much stamp Sexton and Tomac as this is real. This is what we knew coming into the season. This is what they had said coming into the season.
Yeah, I'll walk for you each.
You're doing this?
Yeah.
Oh man, you're gonna be show 1 for life.
Thank you. No, I was pretty quiet about how I felt as far as like my riding and stuff. Like, I don't know. I'm not the guy that's gonna come in and say, hey, I'm gonna win every race. Like, I maybe could think that, but I'm not gonna say it out loud. Just because that's not. Thank you. That's not how I am. And my
but you were feeling
different.
good.
So
yes, okay. They've backed it up. They're healthy. The bikes are good. They're riding well. I think you can lock that in. As for the Lawrences, it's going to be a sliding scale. I know they will figure the bike out. I know they will. But will it take 3 races, 5 races, 10 races? Will it never quite get as good as it was in the previous generation bike in the first year of the new bike in Supercross? I don't know. But that's what we love about round 1. Not knowing is the best knowledge you can have because we want the races to have that dynamic excitement. We want that sliding scale of variance, right? And I think we have it right now. So that's what makes round 1 so good. We want all our questions answered. We had some questions. We didn't get them all answered. We don't want them to. We want it to take 17 races to figure this whole thing out. So it's going to be fun. The bikes matter. They should.